Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Bolivios from A Doctor's View podcast. What I'm going to do today is a quick tutorial on how to record a podcast with 3 people, 2 of which are in the studio, yourself and a talent, and the third one being in a remote location over Skype. The reason why I need to do this as a tutorial is because I found it quite tricky in order to do so. The reason is Skype only accepts channel 1 on your USB interface, the left channel. Now in this case I've got a Scarlett 2i4, this will work with a 2i2 or any USB interface that you may have that gives you a similar problem. So I have to give credit where credit is due, and Ray Ortega did a fantastic video on YouTube showing how to get Skype to accept the different inputs from your USB interface into its settings, and I'll put a link to his description below. And I have to thank him because without that tutorial I wouldn't have gone anywhere near being able to figure out this at all. I've just built on his video and I'm just showing how not only to do what he's shown, but also how to then record that audio into a DAW, a digital audio workstation. In this case I've got GarageBand in the background here, and then turn it into a podcast essentially. So I hope you find it useful. Firstly, I have a Mac. I do apologize if this isn't relevant for Windows users, but hopefully that you can find some relation to it, and you can use the equivalent drivers or the equivalent software that I'm going to show you, and you find it useful too. Firstly, there's 2 different piece of software that you need to download. One is an audio plugin called Soundflower. This is readily available on Google, and just make sure you just type in Soundflower and you find the website, and it's a 2-second download, and it installs automatically and it shows up straight away. Next is a app called Ladiocast, and that is available on the Mac App Store, and that is essentially an electronic software-based mixer, and I'll show you that in a second. So what we need to do once you've downloaded those 2 things is open up the MIDI in Mac, do a Spotlight search command, spacebar if you can't find it, and you'll get this or something similar. Ignore all my things on the left here. You can see that Soundflower appears up there, but ignore that for the time being. What you need to do is click on the plus sign at the bottom and then create your aggregate device. You'll notice that you've got all your different audio devices here, your built-in microphone, built-in output, and you'll see here you've got your USB interface, in this case the Scarlett 2i4, and your Soundflower 2 channel and 64 channel. What you need to do is click on the Scarlett 2i4 first. That's key. Ignore that GarageBand is bouncing up and down there. Then you need to click on Soundflower 64 channel, and you'll see it looks like a mess. Ignore it. It's absolutely fine. You've got input 1 and 2 from your Scarlett, and then you've got 3, 4, all the way up to 66 here. Now the key is to click on the 64 channel and not the 2 channel, and the reasons why it will become apparent later on. I changed the clock source to Soundflower with drift correction on the Scarlett. It works for me. It may be better on another setting, but I'll leave you to work that out. That's the setting I found worked anyway. Next, just rename it to something familiar or something that you can recognize it as. I'm going to choose Skype 3 people, and if you've seen already, I've actually already done this, so I'm going to delete the one I've just created because I don't want it twice. But if I go back to Skype 3 people up the top here, this is exactly what I've done. The key is to make sure you click on the Scarlett 2i4 first and then the Soundflower 64 channel, because you want input 1 and 2 to be first up, not at the end. Okay, so once we've done that, we then need to open up Ladiocast, which is our app that we downloaded from the App Store. So this is what Ladiocast looks like. As I said, it's a electronic or software-based mixer. So you've got all your inputs on one side and you've got all your outputs on the right side. What we need to do is essentially put both our inputs from our USB interface going into one output. So input 1, Scarlett 2i4, and you can see I've got my Rode Procaster connected to channel 1 on my Scarlett 2i4, and it's working nicely. Channel 1 is there, and importantly it's on the left channel. I don't need the right one for input 1, so I'm going to put that to 0. So you should have 1 and 0. Main output, you want it as Soundflower 2 channel. This is key, not 64. You want it as 2 channel. Okay, so that's the first step. Input 2, we want a second microphone plugged into the USB interface, in which case this time I've got my Behringer, and I want to choose Scarlett 2i4 again, and I don't want channel 1 on the left again, I want channel 2 on the left, and I want that on the right one on 0. Now if you notice, both of these are on main, so these should be clicked by default, but make sure both of these are in red. You want them main. So I'm just going to test the Behringer, just turn that on. So if I turn down the Rode now, the audio you're hearing is from the Behringer. So it's showing that input 2 is going up into this main output here, Soundflower 2 channel. So both of these, if I turn back up the Rode, both microphones are going into Soundflower 2 channel. I'll just turn down the Behringer so you don't get too much echo. Okay, input 3. This is going to allow us to record what's coming back from Skype. So the way to do this is to click on Soundflower 64 channel. Okay, and then aux output 2, you can see it's there, aux 2. Aux output 2, we want it back to 2i4. And what this allows us to do is not only record what's coming back from Skype, but also allows us to hear everything through the monitoring on your USB interface. So I've got headphones plugged into my Focusrite Scarlett 2i4, and I can hear my voice, and then I'll also be able to hear what's coming back from Skype as well. So that's a lot of it done, actually. That's the key things, the Soundflower and the Ladiocast with these settings. So you can screenshot it and have a look and see and make sure you've got those settings. Next, what we need to do is open up, I'll keep that in the background actually, open up Skype. So at the moment, if you go to, when you open up Skype and you're met with your welcome screen, if you go to the top here, Skype, and then click on audio video settings, you'll get this, this interface here. At the moment, Skype is picking up the microphone sounds from my built-in microphone. I don't want that. It sounds rubbish. So I'm going to change that with this drop-down menu here to Soundflower 2 channel. Can you see what's happening? So the main output here being Soundflower 2 channel on our electronic mixer, on our Ladiocast, is picking up both the microphones, and then Skype is picking up the Soundflower. In terms of speakers, we want to be able to hear back what's happening through our headphones. So, and also to record it as well from the remote person coming back into us. So we want Soundflower 64 channel, not the 2 channel, the 64 channel. If you put 2 channel, you'll get a loop feedback, and it will just echo and continue to hum and buzz, and it's awful. So these are the settings you need. So you've got microphone 2 channel, Soundflower, and then speakers Soundflower 64 channel. Next, this is now 90% complete. Next, we go into our DAW. I've got GarageBand, like I said. I'm going to unmute this so you can see my voice is moving. Now, at the moment, I've got my input as my Focusrite. I need to go into change that. So I need to go to GarageBand, Preferences, go into my Audio MIDI. Now, input device, I want my Skype 3 people. And that is what we saved as in our MIDI player earlier on, or whatever you've named it as. Whatever you named it as, that's what you want as your input device. Your output device, you want to stay as your USB interface, or however it is you're monitoring and recording this audio, or listening to your headphones, sorry. So I've got my USB interface as my output, and input Skype 3 people. So let's exit the settings. They're all set. It's sometimes when you've changed it, it doesn't pick up immediately, but don't worry about that too much for the moment. Next, I want 3 tracks. Okay, so we've got 3 different tracks here. They're all picking up the same thing. Input 1. this is going to be me speaking, or the main person speaking. So I want to change that to input Skype 1, and that should be the default anyway. That's the, if you notice in brackets here is what we named it as in the MIDI interface. So whatever you've named it as, that should appear there, and you want that as input 1. Audio 2, we want as our Behringer, or our second microphone on channel 2. So we put number 2. And if you see, if I lower down the Rode and put the Behringer on, you can see that is picking up the Behringer. Now, input 3, the audio 3, we don't actually want track 3. I found this didn't work. What you need is track 4. Okay, and this, if you go all the way down, you've got all the 66 channels that we had on the 64 channel SoundFlower, but I found track 4 works. You don't need any of the others. So next you're thinking how to record all 3 at the same time, because the default is that on GarageBand at least, it only chooses the one that you've actually clicked on. So what you need to do is, if you right click, configure track header, you'll get this record enable. You need to click that and you'll get these 3 different recording buttons here. So whilst you hold down the shift key, you click on the first one, and while still holding down the shift key, click on the second, and again the third, again whilst all holding down the shift key, and you'll see all 3 are flashing at the same time. And so now what it will do is it will record all 3 tracks at the same time now. So we should have input from me, input from my guest and sitting next to me, and input from the Skype conversation that we're having. So the way to test that is if we go back to Skype and click on test audio, you can see that it's picking up the audio. And also, just to show, it's also picking up the Behringer as well. So all 3 are now recording harmoniously. Obviously you shouldn't all be talking at the same time, but you know, it does. And all you have to do is press record. And there we go. You get 3 different waveforms that you can actually do independently, edit independently. I'll just stop that, and I'll stop this as well because that's annoying. So I hope that was useful, and like I say, big thanks to Ray for putting that video out earlier. It's an old video, but I found it today. I was trying to solve this problem, and then found a new problem, which was how do I record this all? And it took me a little bit of time to figure out, but there we go. So hope it was helpful, and if you have any questions, please send them to me. I've on my website at doctorsview.co.uk. Also, you can check a Doctor's View on the apps, the Apple Podcasts, and drop me a message if there's any topics you want me to talk about on that. Otherwise, join you again next time, guys. Thank you. Bye bye.